lure right away. We want to give her a chance to do a little flying. Oh, there she goes. Gives you a chance for her to get some exercise. You can see her fly, but she's not supposed to fly. Point that direction. So keep your eyes open. She'll probably be back here in just a second. She could be coming from any angle. Here she comes. There you go. Now, again, look at her. She flies long, pointed wings. That's one of the things that distinguishes her as a falcon. Also, a long tail that helps with maneuverability. Also, she's got that radio transmitter hanging off of her leg there. Now, this bird normally lives up in the Arctic, so they don't have to maneuver around trees, and they can build up some really amazing speeds. Here, she does have to work with the trees a little bit, so she doesn't get going quite as fast, but she's still pretty impressive. Okay, just a couple more passes here, and then we'll bring her back down. Oh. Now, this is not a bird that flies silently and sneaks up on her prey. Use her incredible speed to catch her prey. There she comes. Come on, Kenai. There you go. Good job. Try and match the animal's natural diets as closely as possible. So in the wild, she'll eat a lot of ducks, geese, ptarmigan, other birds. She'll also eat some ground prey like lemmings, snowshoe hares, and things like that. But birds seem to be her distinct favorites, so that's what she gets mostly here at the zoo. Now another piece to get her back up on my glove here. Come on, Kenai. And then we'll hand her off to get her a little bit closer for everybody to get another look at. She's learned that if she flips her lure over, she gets two pieces of meat, because we put a piece on either side, so no matter which way it lands, she gets something. Come on, Kenai. There you go. Oh. Come on, you. That's my foot. You don't want that.
The wall slabs were 18 inches.
drinking and irrigation water, for farm and ranch land. The salmon and sea-run trout also depend on watersheds for life itself.
The salmon really start their lives and end their lives in the river. The salmon spawn in the river, so they require good, clean gravels of the right size and the right distribution. And so when the watersheds deliver sediment to the stream, they're providing those spawning gravels. And as long as we continue to keep the watersheds in the condition where they deliver the right amounts of sediment, not too much so they don't get too muddy and sedimented in, not too little so that they become nothing but bedrock, then the salmon have a place to spawn.
The right gravel conditions provide an incubator for the eggs and a nursery for the growing juveniles. But good gravels are important past the first weeks and months of a salmon's life. The gravels, from taking local emergency measures to planning repairs of entire watersheds, the hearts and minds of many people in the Pacific Northwest are with the salmon in their struggle for existence. We are beginning to see how watersheds and salmon can be restored with thoughtful, systematic planning, community involvement, and education. Underlying this work, supporting it, is something deeper, the desire for a certain richness of life in this remarkable place we share.
The natives, the old-timers used to say that across these creeks you could, when the spawners were going up, there were so many spawners you could almost walk across the backs of them to cross the creek. There were thousands and thousands. And clearly those days have passed, but maybe we can get back a little bit to it.
Got it.
And go for it.
Okay, to start out, just describe what's prompting the lidding program. Is it 9/11 or did it predate that?
Oh, it predates 9/11 by about 6 years. What triggered the reservoir covering program was a rule by the Washington State Department of Health, essentially requiring that each utility that operated open reservoirs at the time come up with a plan to bury them or phase them out. And as a result, Seattle prepared a reservoir burying plan and presented it to DOH in early 1996. That plan was geared primarily around floating covers, however. There was significant discussion with elected officials, and the policy direction at the time was to keep the program costs low, use floating covers wherever possible, the only exceptions being two of the reservoirs in dense urban areas, specifically Lincoln in Cal Anderson Park and Volunteer in Volunteer Park, where the setback between the fence, the distance between the fence and the open reservoir is fairly small, and thereby making it impractical to use floating covers, which are fairly fragile structures and could be damaged by pointed objects.
To date, the only soft cover is at Bitter Lake?
In the city of Seattle, yes. There is one additional reservoir operated by Seattle Public Utilities in the city of Lake Forest Park. It's a regional reservoir serving our wholesale customers as well as Seattle, and that also has a floating cover.
But it was a health issue, if I hear you right, that prompted the initial program and then added to that a safety issue after 9/11?
That is correct, yes. The Seattle Public Utilities was on track with the floating covers until 9/11, and in fact immediately after 9/11 in November of 2001, City Council passed an ordinance directing Seattle Public Utilities to accelerate the program while still essentially sticking with the floating covers with some added electronic detection and alarm systems. However, when Mayor Nichols came in 2002, he made an alternate proposal, which was to shift towards buried reservoirs in favor instead of floating covers as a better way to address the security issues. And over the next year, there were extended discussions between SPU and Council, and with the growing awareness of security as a whole, it was recognized that indeed the buried reservoirs are a better way to go, particularly given the added benefit of open space creation in Seattle.
How many acres of open space will you gain?
Approximately 76 acres are expected to be created as a result of the burying of the reservoirs.
How many acres were gained at Lincoln Reservoir?
That one was about 10 acres.
If you
actually, I need to check.
Okay,
that.
yeah, you can check that. We can get that afterwards.
Yeah, let's get that
that's
afterwards.
Fine.
I have a table. I tried to bring
It's
it.
fine. It sounds like Maple Leaf is set to be lidded. You will then decommission Roosevelt. How come Roosevelt's not needed anymore?
Well, Roosevelt and Maple Leaf are very close together. They're about half a mile apart. To answer this question, one has to look back into the history of the water system. When these two reservoirs were built, there was a single pipeline across the Ship Canal bringing Cedar River water to the neighborhoods, to the growing neighborhoods north of the Ship Canal. And having a single pipeline is less reliable because it may go down for various reasons. In addition to that, at the time, the city had a single source, and it was a run-of-the-river diversion. That meaning the water came straight out of the river into a pipe and into town. So there was active logging in the watershed at that time, and the turbidity of the river water would occasionally go up to the point where the water was visually cloudy. And at such times, invariably, the water supply was shut down for a few days, a day or two. And during that time, the in-town reservoirs were the only source of water for Seattle. The system nowadays is very different. We have two pipelines across the Ship Canal. We have a supply from the north coming in from the Tolt. And therefore, the reliance on in-town reservoirs has diminished over the years, and that creates the opportunity to maybe scale back in-town storage and save some money while doing that.
What about Volunteer Park? There are obviously a group of people who would like this water feature kept. What's the likelihood of that happening?
There is a fair chance that we could decommission Volunteer. No decision's been made, though. It's a fairly difficult decision in the sense that once made, it's impossible to reverse. So we want to be really sure that it's the right thing to do, and take some time to actually operate without the reservoirs most of the time, without Volunteer Reservoir most of the time, and then decide if everything goes well. After all the other reservoirs are buried, specifically Maple Leaf, Beacon, West Seattle, and Myrtle, at that point make a decision on what to do with Volunteer.
If you lidded it, is there any way to recreate this water feature?
Absolutely. It's possible to build a water feature on top of a buried reservoir. In fact, that's what we have at Lincoln at Cal Anderson Park. The water feature does sit on top of the reservoir. It's not an ideal situation from a water supply standpoint, but it's certainly possible.
Is there I've heard talk of that one opportunity or one option would be to actually sink a new reservoir under the amphitheater space.
Yes, that has been something we've taken a look at, and it's possible. The challenge then is connecting the inlet-outlet pipes to the new reservoir, which would then have to be extended at a significant cost. So Cost-wise, there doesn't seem to be much of a benefit to move the reservoir under the amphitheater.
If you decommissioned Volunteer Park, would it just be a big pond?
If we decommissioned the reservoir, what we would do is we would construct a new underground chamber somewhere in the street over there in front of the gatehouse, and get all the water system features outside of the gatehouse, and at that point the reservoir will no longer be part of the water system. Now, what happens with it is something to be figured out with the community, with
Parks Department.
the Parks Department. Certainly, the reservoir wouldn't need to be as deep as it is now, at about 25 feet. If it were just a reflecting pond, there wouldn't be a need for a fence around it.
Is this the only reservoir in the system where there's this, you know, controversy, if you will, about not lidding it? Every other neighborhood seems to love the lids. This is a little different.
Well, this Volunteer is unique in the sense that it clearly was designed as part of the park, the Volunteer Park, which is, as we know, the best park in Seattle. So that does put it in a unique situation, which is why it's one of the reasons why we find it attractive to decommission it as a water facility. The per gallon cost of reconstructing at Volunteer are going to be much higher than, say, at Maple Leaf. So
Reconstructing meaning putting it over there or lidding it?
lidding it in its current place.
Why is it more expensive here than Maple Leaf?
I would well, because the settings are more restrictive. We're in a park, and we anticipate some restoration on top of the reservoir that wouldn't be there at Maple Leaf.
If you decommissioned it, what's the effect on water supply for the people that live around here and depend on this now?
There shouldn't be any effect, obviously. The reservoirs do work together, and you know, if there's no reservoir at Volunteer, others will step in and take that function through connecting pipelines.
So something, I mean, the system's been upgraded enough, if I hear you right, so that you could maybe get away with decommissioning without having it be felt?
That is correct, yes. However, we have not made a final decision yet. We want to get some operational experience without the reservoir, and only then make a final decision to rebuild it or decommission it.
When do you start experimenting?
We already have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. However, any action at Volunteer is at least another 7 or 8 years out. Right now, our official planning documents show it potentially going to construction in 2013. So there's quite a ways to go.
When is the federal mandate?
We have
in?
until 2020 to complete the reservoir burying program.
And
And we'll accomplish that well ahead of that deadline.
And I assume every city in America is under the same kind of. There's nothing unique about Seattle and their reservoirs, are there?
No, Portland is dealing with the same issues, and they have reservoirs in their premier park, so it's not unique to Seattle. What is unique is that we have a lot of them, more than probably any city in America.
How come?
One reason would be that Seattle, as the water system was built, there was probably more storage built than elsewhere. And the other reason more recently was that other cities began phasing them out perhaps sooner than Seattle. In fact, we kept building open reservoirs into the 60s. And in the 70s, there was an attempt by the Department of Health to ban open reservoirs that failed, and so because of public outcry, primarily in Seattle. So there was a letting opportunity somewhat missed in the mid-70s, which took us all the way into the 90s before the program started again.
Let me have you say that one more time. The people of Seattle rejected some kind of effort to lid reservoirs?
That's correct, yes.
Because of?
Because of cost and because there didn't appear to be a compelling reason for that at the time. The arguments that were made was, well, we've been fine with these open reservoirs for 70 years, so how could anything be wrong with them? The fact is that open reservoirs are a point of contamination to the water system aesthetically, and there may not be an acute public health hazard, but there is an aesthetic issue with the open reservoirs and degradation of some deterioration of the quality of the water, the taste and odor of the water.
Is Volunteer Park the only reservoir really in an active, established park?
Well, it used to be, I guess, with the recent completion of Lincoln Reservoir, we have another one that it's in active park at Cal Anderson.
And I guess Beacon Hill kind of hopes to become a park, but it's not.
Well, currently it isn't, but there's some very specific plans as well as funding for Beacon to become something similar to Volunteer.
Meaning, similar to Lincoln or similar to Volunteer?
Well, Lincoln and Volunteer, whereby following the reservoir burying project by SPU, the Department of Parks will come in and actually they have funding from the 2000 Pro Park bond levy to actually build a pretty elaborate park with ball fields at Beacon Reservoir.
And the one more thing, Beacon and Myrtle are both they're both next up.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They're scheduled to go into construction mid 2006.
And one more thing, it is possible. I know I'm repeating this question, but it is possible to try and recreate this water feature.
If the reservoir is to be buried, yes, it is possible.
Do you think it's more likely that it be decommissioned or that it be? It sounds like the current plan is to attempt
50-50
decommission.
at this point. Yes, we are.
Can you say that one more time? Sorry, because I talked over you.
I would say at this point it's a toss. It's 50-50. We are really committed to, in our asset management efforts, to really look at the benefit of the reservoir, of rebuilding the reservoir in this setting, and compare it to the costs, and look for other more cost-effective opportunities rather than be right here where it's difficult and expensive to rebuild.
Do you think it sounds then if one option is to rebuild with the lid, the second option is to decommission, the third option being to bury it over, do you think that's a pretty remote option?
I would say it is, yeah. There doesn't seem to be any clear advantage of going all the way into the amphitheater at this point. Yeah.
That's great. And then can you just say on the camera your name?